So those of you who follow my channel may have seen my super cool unboxing of this MacBook Air. But the thing that you don't know is, days after I recorded that video, it happened. Those 4 letters, WWDC. Oh my gosh, you're doing the Mac announcements. I'm so excited. I know I just got this Air. What are they going to say?
Today, we're announcing that the Mac is transitioning to our own Apple system. So we can make much better products. When we look ahead, we envision
it's probably going to be like 4 or 5 years. I don't even know why I'm tripping about it. Like, obviously, it wouldn't have made any difference how I waited because it's so far off. It doesn't matter.
Apple Silicon by the end of this year, and we expect the transition to take about 2 years.
So after learning about the future of Macs, is this Mac still worth buying in 2020? Well, let's go ahead and check it out. Oh no, it looks like the mic texted out channel theme and video broke. I might have to bust out the old school intro theme. Alright, so I'm back here to review the MacBook Air. Now this is the step-up model from the base model that retails for about $1,300. It has the Core i5 quad-core processor, 8 GB of RAM, and the 512 GB SSD. And with that being said, the first thing I want to talk about to get this out of the way, this does put this computer in a very weird space because for $1,300 you can also get a MacBook Pro, the 13-inch. So what's the difference between this and the 13-inch MacBook Pro? Well, the 13-inch MacBook Pro is faster because, you know, it's actively cooled. So basically the processor in this MacBook, it is a lower power processor, is meant to run cool. So it's not actively cooled, meaning that it just has a piece of copper over it, like a heat sink, to dissipate the heat, versus the MacBook Pro that has a cooler on it, so it has the copper, of course, and then that has a fan attached to it to dissipate heat. This doesn't seem like it'd be that important, but it is important when it's related to the performance. So there are a couple things that the MacBook Air has that the 13-inch MacBook Pro doesn't. For one, this is running a 10th generation Intel processor, but again, that doesn't really matter that much because it's still a slower processor that draws a lot less power and it's not actively cooled, so performance-wise, the 13-inch is still better. This computer also has much faster RAM than the MacBook Pro, and you also get 512 GB of storage versus 256. The MacBook Pro refresh this year was kind of weird because the lower end models were left with last generation hardware. They only updated the keyboard. And then when you get to the $1,800 models and above, that's when you get the 10th generation processors with the upgraded RAM, like the same RAM that the MacBook Air comes with. And you get, of course, 4 Thunderbolt ports. The reason I chose this over the Pro is I'm just going to be doing web browsing, email, occasionally writing, and then some light audio editing in Logic Pro. So I didn't need anything that was too powerful. So I'd rather have the extra storage than to have an overall more powerful computer where I'm not really going to use that power because I already have desktop behind me that I use for pretty much everything else, for video editing, anything important that I need to get done. I just needed a Mac so I could still run Logic Pro when I needed it, and this is more than enough to do that. And the step up to the 512 storage on the MacBook Pro is an extra $200. So theoretically you could spend $1,500 and get a MacBook Pro with the same storage, and it would overall be a better machine than this. Oh, and of course, I forgot to mention, with the MacBook Pro, you do get the touch bar. And, you know, if you love the touch bar, you know, I'm not here to hate on anybody. I'm not a touch bar hater. I'm a touch bar neutralist. So do your thing. That's all I'm saying. That being said, if you need additional power, then you definitely want to go with the MacBook Pro because this is not going to be that machine. Now, another thing I want to touch on briefly is the downgrade. So yes, I did have a MacBook Pro previously. I had the 2018 15-inch model that had the 6-core Core i7 processor. It was the 8th generation Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, and then 256 gigabytes of storage, which was not great. But I had so many issues with that computer overheating, and then of course it had the dreaded butterfly switch keyboard, which has its own reliability problems. And because it was just hot all the time. Now, this might have been an issue with my particular MacBook, and I did actually have it repaired for that very issue, and they ended up finding out the battery was swollen, and they replaced the whole top case and the battery, and it did perform better, but it still just generally ran hot, even when like nothing was really going on the computer, and then it would just randomly shut down all the time. I think part of it was just I just happened to get a lemon, and part of it was like that particular model had a bad thermal design. And over the time period of having that MacBook, I really transitioned everything over to Windows. So now I have my Windows desktop, which is here behind me. Anything that requires a massive amount of power I do is on there. So I really didn't need a MacBook anymore that had that much power, which is another reason that I went with the Air. The thing that really impressed me about the Air is like when it comes to these everyday tasks, it really doesn't feel any different. And that's because the storage in it is super fast. And then of course it has super fast RAM. So that really does help compensate for the processor not being nearly as fast as a MacBook Pro. So like when it comes to like launching Safari and having multiple tabs open or listening to music and playing videos, like there's not going to be much difference between this and a MacBook Pro performance wise. Of course, if you benchmark it, then yeah, of course the MacBook Pro on paper is going to be way better, but I can tell you from day-to-day use, if you're just doing regular tasks, then the Air really doesn't feel any different. Now, of course, me being me, I got curious, and I did a video last year when I first started upgrading my Windows computer to handle video editing, where I kind of did a render battle between my MacBook Pro and my Windows desktop. And the video I used in that test was like the later case unboxing, which I did towards the end of last year. And the reason I used that later case clip is because it was one of the first multicam videos that I did in Resolve. So it really pushed my MacBook Pro at the time to its limits. The performance of that video on the MacBook Pro was very choppy. This was without me caching any of the information and running at full resolution. So of course you can get better performance by rendering at half resolution for editing or quarter. So it's not like the MacBook Pro isn't capable of doing that, but I just wanted to have like a drag race between my Windows computer and the MacBook Pro. So the MacBook Pro finished that render in about 7.5 minutes. My Windows computer is about 3.5 minutes. So I imported my Resolve library onto this computer just to see how different the performance is from the MacBook Pro. So my 2018 MacBook Pro finished the render in just 7.5 minutes. I did playback up here. It was choppy. It was probably equally as choppy as it was on the MacBook Pro. But this is, again, it running at full resolution, at full 1080p with 2 high bitrate video clips. And then I went to go render it, and yeah, it took over 20 minutes. And there's only one fan in this computer, and that fan was working overtime. The cooling in this computer is just not designed to be placed under a long-term load like that. I just got curious to see how it would be if I did that. And yeah, technically it did finish the render. It's just not ideal. And I wouldn't recommend, buying this for video editing, even though realistically you probably could edit some 1080p video up here and it would be okay. The cooling in this computer is not designed in a way where it's designed to deal with sustained loads for long periods of time. So like in the same way that you could drag race a minivan, it's just not the recommended thing to do because it's not really made for that. Like I know that you were at the traffic light and that Camaro probably flashed its lights at you and you were like, you know what? This Odyssey can do more than just pick the kids up from soccer. But no, just don't. Certain point, if this is a repeat offender, like you're seeing the same person at the light in the Camaro, then maybe you gotta drag race him at least once. But you just can't drag race him all the time. It's just not gonna end well. Just like this is not really built for video editing or anything that's too intensive for a sustained period of time. As far as performance in Logic Pro, I opened up one of the songs I did a couple years ago. Actually, it was the first theme that I had for this channel, and I was just kind of playing it back and scrubbing through it, and it's completely fine. I really don't notice a difference between this and the MacBook Pro. And that song had like 5 or 6 tracks in it. It's nothing major. So performance-wise, I'm more than confident that this can handle like all the stuff that I personally be doing in Logic Pro. If you are doing a bunch of effects and maybe you're gonna have like 60 tracks or something like that open, this is definitely not the computer for you. You definitely want to look into a MacBook Pro. And probably not even the 13-inch. You'd want to at least start with the 16-inch if you're looking at a notebook. Realistically, even if you were doing video editing, If you can afford to get the 16-inch, that's like a good starting place, and then to go up from there if you're really doing anything that's serious. But yeah, Logic Pro performs great. And then I just decided to do like regular person stuff. So I opened up Safari, had about 11 or 12 tabs open. I also had music playing in the background through the music app. And then I had a picture-in-picture video going, playing from the Apple TV app. You know, I want it to be realistic, and I know that no one really watches Apple TV Plus, but come on, I didn't feel like signing into anything else on this computer. I haven't fully signed into Netflix or Amazon or anything, so give me a break, okay? Give me a break. I'm sure Tim Cook watches Apple TV Plus on his MacBook Air. He probably doesn't even have one. It really handled having all those tabs open, playing music, playing a video. At the same time, I also had the podcast app open. It handled it with no issues. Like, the fan didn't even have to kick on, and I was honestly impressed by it. Like, for day-to-day tasks, this is a beast of a computer. But with that being said, Apple didn't leave any room for anything else. Yeah, like I said, you can edit video up here, and here's an example of a 1080p video playing back at full resolution in Resolve, and it plays back okay. I did end up going down to half resolution, and that was a more optimal experience. It felt like it was a lot smoother. So yeah, you can do it, but because the way this cooling solution is built out, I wouldn't recommend buying this for video editing at all. What other things can I say about the MacBook? Well, the microphone quality is actually really good for a built-in mic. Like, if you just need to make a conference call or something like that, this will be more than good enough. And the speakers are outstanding. Like, these speakers actually were way louder and way more clear than my MacBook Pro speakers, and I had the 15-inch. Of course, Apple's recently made a lot of strides with their laptop audio, especially after releasing the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So yeah, the speakers up here are outstanding. I was like, wow, how did they get these little speakers in here that sound so great? And of course, you still have the Facetime camera, which it exists. It definitely exists. It exists. If you're expecting me to say something nice about it, that's the nicest thing I had to say. But seriously though, why does Apple continue to put these terrible webcams in their laptop? I was actually joking about this with my friend Dijon, because he recently got a 2015 MacBook Pro, and I was like, yeah, the webcam's exactly the same, even in the current models, which is true. It's the 720p HD webcam that they've had since like 2011 or 2012. It's terrible. Like, yeah, it's functional, as in people can see you, technically, but that's it. Like, it's functional. Another thing I love is keyboard and trackpad are actually pretty spacious for a 13-inch laptop. Not that Apple hasn't been building 13-inch laptops for a very long time. Oh, look, it's me. I'm breaking the third wall. Yeah, the trackpad, keyboard. This keyboard is actually great. I wasn't sure about it at first. I was like, oh, it just feels similar to the butterfly switch, except it has a little bit more travel. Like, the travel is not a significant amount, but once you really start using it and you get down into it, it's just a way better typing experience. I'm able to type way faster. The keys are way sturdier. Not way sturdier than the butterfly switch keyboards, because they just didn't move at all. Like, the only thing you could get that was more sturdy than that butterfly switch keyboard was a desk. Like, I just had to type on this. But, you know, as far as having a keyboard where the keys move up and down, these keys are actually pretty stable. Like, if you tap them on either side, they don't have a lot of wiggle to them. It's really overall a great experience. Of course, you get your 2 Thunderbolt ports, and then you have your headphone jack on this side, and that's pretty much it as far as ports, which sucks. I mean, I've gotten used to it just dealing with my 2018 MacBook Pro, but of course that had 4 Thunderbolt ports. And honestly, it's not an issue for me because this sits on my desk most of the time. But, you know, if you are planning to use this as a portable machine, and you might need like an SD card reader, maybe you need like an HDMI because you're planning on like taking it to class and connecting it to a TV or a monitor or something like that, and then you also want to have it plugged in. It's just, you're going to have to spend money on like a dongle solution. And this laptop is so thin and portable, it kind of sucks that you have to be hindered by having to carry around so many dongles. And to be fair, with as thin as this design is, there's not really a lot of room for any extra ports on it now, especially. But it does kind of suck, just the aspect of having this super portable laptop. But if you need like anything else, like USB related or any kind of accessory like a card reader, you could probably fit a card reader up here still. You gotta have 800 dongles available, and then of course if you have the charge at the same time, you're losing a port unless you get like an adapter that has pass-through charging. That's the reality, and all laptops are going that way. But even so, I really feel like all Apple's computers at this point should at least have 4 Thunderbolt ports. Another thing I love is the display. Like the display up here is excellent. The MacBook Pro has a bit more detail as far as colors, but this still looks outstanding, and it's a way cheaper notebook, so nothing to complain about as far as the display is concerned. Attention, attention. This is video editor's Mike here, and somehow I recorded a whole laptop review without mentioning the battery life. This laptop has around 9 hours of battery life. I have not done extensive testing, but generally, from normal usage, it has been excellent. Now back to the video. I don't know why I had to make that so weird. I apologize. Alright, so that's my overall feelings on the MacBook Air as it currently stands. It's a really good, portable, everyday task laptop. I think it's definitely worth the $1,300 if you want to get the step-up model. I know a lot of people are like, get the $1,000 model, and then if you want more, then just step up to a MacBook Pro. But if you don't need that power and you want the 512 gigabytes of storage, and you don't want to pay $1,500 versus paying $1,300, then getting a MacBook Air is fine. Just know that you're not going to have that option to step up in power when you need it, versus the MacBook Pro, which will give you a little bit more leeway. But I don't have an issue with recommending the Air for that price. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room that I saved for last for some reason. I don't know why, but of course, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the WWDC announcement, Apple Silicon. This literally happened 4 days after getting this notebook, and I didn't really care that much, honestly. I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like, I'm really excited for the future of the Apple notebooks, but I just really wanted to get rid of my MacBook Pro and get this in my house now. And there are some advantages to buying a MacBook right now that's still on Intel. You're on mature software and hardware right now. Obviously, the software is going to change because macOS Big Sur is right around the corner. But you are on mature software and hardware. If there is a specific program that you're relying on, that's a third-party program that's not made by Apple, and is currently working on the Intel chipset, then you might be more incentivized right now, at least, to go ahead and buy an Intel-based Mac until they get those issues ironed out, because there are going to be issues when they switch everything over to ARM. They said the transition is going to take 2 years, which means that we'll at least get 2 years of support out of this MacBook. I think it's probably going to be more, because they did say that there's going to be some upcoming Intel Macs. And then also there's just the fact that there's going to be certain things like the Mac Pro that is probably not going to get updated for a long time. So they're going to have these computers that are still going to be in the pipeline that are going to need support. Now, the level of that support is going to be iffy, because they're kind of in the process of redoing all their first-party apps to run off of the ARM-based chips. And I feel like at a certain point, they're not going to continue to develop these x86-based versions of these apps simultaneously while developing the ARM-based version. So, of course, logically, it is going to be phased out, and possibly it could just be 2 years, and then, this could be done. This could just be stuck on this version of Mac OS, and then that'll be pretty much it. Now, the other thing is, we also don't know when the MacBook Air is going to be refreshed. It's rumored right now that the 13-inch MacBook Pro is going to be the first computer to be refreshed, possibly by the end of this year or Q1 2021, and then the MacBook Air would be shortly after that. And considering the way that this computer is designed, it's definitely in that position where it's ready to take advantage of Apple's processor that's going to be a lot cooler and more efficient and probably get better performance. Like, if there's anything that I expect off the bat to have better performance, is definitely the MacBook Air, the next generation one. I really am excited to see the next MacBook Air, and who knows, like, if it's really good, I'll probably wait like a couple of generations, but maybe I'll upgrade to that new MacBook Air. But for now, this one is completely fine. But if you are in a position where you have a MacBook that's still good, like let's say if you have a 2014 or 2015 MacBook Pro or something like that, and you're waiting to upgrade, and you can wait a few more years until the ARM-based systems are out, and maybe they're on their second generation, then I would say wait for that, because then by then it should be a way better experience than the initial launch is probably going to be. Not saying that it's going to be bad. I think Apple's going to be prepared, but there are definitely going to be compatibility issues because all their third parties are not going to be prepared. Everything's not going to work smoothly. I know that they're talking about Rosetta 2, but I think that it's going to be bumpy at first, and I'm fine with having my Intel-based Mac until they get it figured out, and then possibly upgrading in the future. So if you have the time to hold off, the smart thing to do would be to hold off and wait, a generation or two until the new ARM-based Macs are out there and a little bit more mature. If not, go ahead and buy the MacBook Air. It's still a great computer, and I still think that it's going to be supported for years to come. So to bring this to a conclusion, what I like about the MacBook Air is it's light and portable, has a great trackpad and keyboard. I love the fingerprint scanner. I forgot to mention that earlier in the review. But yeah, there's a fingerprint scanner right here too, which is also the power button. And it's awesome. It works super fast. It's a beast at everyday tasks like web browsing, email, document editing. And also I like that it stays cool because it's running a lower powered chipset. So unless you have to kick this up for some reason, like you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, it runs pretty cool. Of course, the cons are there are a lack of ports. The cooling is bad when you actually need to do something more intensive with this laptop, and the 2010 era webcam. There's also the fact that if you step up to the second model of the MacBook Air, this one that you are running into the price point of the MacBook Pro, which does offer better performance. It just has less storage. And then, of course, if we're looking on the Windows side for $1,300, you can get a lot more performance-wise than the MacBook Air. But I would also argue that build quality wise, it's going to be difficult to find something with this good of build quality. But overall, this is a very solid and well-built notebook. And whether you're looking to get one now or you're holding out for the ARM-based one, to me, the MacBook Air is an easy recommendation as long as you understand its limitations. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.